Stop scrolling for a second because what I'm about to tell you will change the way you see yourself forever. There is one invisible habit that most older men are doing every single day without realizing it, and it is quietly destroying their respect, their presence, and their natural magnetism. You might think being magnetic is about your looks, your money, or your confidence, but that's a lie. Real magnetism doesn't come from what you have, it comes from what you stop doing. Most men over-explain themselves, over-apologize, and constantly seek validation from people who don't even matter. They bend over backward to please the world, and in doing so, they hand over pieces of their energy, their presence, and their power without even noticing. And here's the shocking truth. The moment you stop these habits, the moment you reclaim your power, your presence becomes magnetic. People start noticing you. Women, men, colleagues, strangers, they are drawn to you instinctively without you having to try. But this isn't just about confidence. It's about authority. It's about energy. It's about learning to move through life in a way that commands respect, draws attention, and makes people instinctively lean in, even when you say nothing at all. This is the kind of magnetic energy most men spend their entire lives chasing. But the secret is, it's already inside you. You just need to stop giving it away. So stay with me until the end of this video because I'm going to reveal the exact habits older men are doing that make them invisible, the habits they need to stop immediately, and the step-by-step way to reclaim the kind of magnetic presence that turns heads, commands respect, and changes the way the world responds to you. Watch closely because by the end your perspective will be completely different and you'll never see yourself the same way again. Let's start with something most men don't even realize they're doing, something so subtle, so ingrained that it has quietly been eroding their power, their respect, and their natural presence for years. And it's something so simple, over-explaining, over-justifying, saying too much when saying nothing would have been enough. Most older men live their lives trying to make everyone understand their decisions, trying to convince the world that they're right or that they deserve respect. And in doing so, they drain themselves of the very magnetism they wish to have. Think about it. How often do you find yourself explaining your actions, your choices, your lifestyle, or your thoughts to someone who never needed the explanation in the first place? You justify why you spend your money a certain way, why you take the time you do to yourself, why you live according to your own rules. You try to rationalize your existence to people who are, frankly, not even paying attention. And every time you do this, you give away a piece of your power. Every time you over-explain, you tell the world, I am not enough on my own. I need you to understand me. I need you to approve me. That, my friends, is the exact opposite of magnetism. Now, let me clarify something. This isn't about arrogance. It's not about refusing to communicate or ignoring responsibility. It's not about being cold or dismissive. It's about understanding one simple truth. Your life, your choices, your presence, these are yours. They do not require validation from anyone. The minute you realize this, the minute you stop the endless cycle of explanation, something shifts inside you. People start noticing a quiet confidence. A presence that does not need approval. And let me tell you, that presence is magnetic in ways flashy cars, fancy suits, or smooth words never could be. You see, over-explaining is often rooted in fear. Fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear that if someone doesn't understand you, they won't like you, or worse, they won't respect you. And this fear leads men into a trap where they feel compelled to defend themselves constantly. But here's the paradox. The more you defend yourself, the weaker you appear. The more you try to convince others of your worth, the more they unconsciously sense a lack of it. The energy of desperation, even if subtle, is impossible to hide, and it repels respect, attraction, and authority faster than anything else. Contrast that with a man who understands the power of restraint, a man who knows that he doesn't need to justify his presence or explain every detail of his life. He doesn't speak to impress, he speaks because he chooses to. He doesn't offer reasons for his decisions unless it's necessary. He doesn't need to convince the room that he's worthy of attention, he already owns it in silence. This man doesn't chase understanding, he commands it by simply existing with clarity and self-possession. And when you step into that energy, People are drawn to you naturally. They feel it before they even realize why. That, my friends, is the invisible force of magnetism. Over-explaining doesn't just drain your power, it also clouds your mind. When you're constantly crafting reasons, crafting arguments, defending yourself against imagined judgments, you lose touch with your own authority. You start to doubt yourself because your focus is on proving yourself to others instead of living in alignment with your own values. You become reactive instead of proactive. You become a performer, reacting to the opinions of a world that doesn't really care about your explanations, instead of a creator living deliberately, unapologetically, and fully present in your own life. Think about it in practical terms. How many conversations have you had where you explained too much and at the end, nothing changed? How many times have you felt exhausted from defending a choice that didn't need defending? That energy, wasted, misdirected, and unnecessary, is exactly the energy that could be making you magnetic. And the reason it's wasted is simple. People rarely care as much as you think they do. The world is not waiting to analyze your every choice. People are not constantly judging your every move. Most of the time, they barely notice. And the moment you internalize that truth, you free yourself. You stop giving away your energy to the noise of others' expectations, and you redirect it to the only place that matters: your own presence, your own vision, your own life. Here's the deeper lesson. Over-explaining is a symptom of insecurity, but it also becomes a habit that slowly eats away at the quiet authority every man has inside him. The man who stops over-explaining does not stop communicating. He stops seeking approval. He does not stop being accountable. He stops proving himself unnecessarily. He does not stop caring about what matters. He stops wasting energy on what doesn't. That's the difference between a man who is ordinary and a man who is magnetic. It's subtle, but it's undeniable, and it begins with a single choice: to stop giving away your power in the form of explanations that nobody asked for. So here's what I want you to do. The next time you feel the urge to justify a decision, to explain why you do what you do, pause. Ask yourself, do I need to explain this? Does anyone actually need me to explain this? Or am I just giving away my energy to feed someone else's expectations? That pause alone is transformative. That pause alone begins the process of reclaiming your presence, your authority, and your magnetism. And the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. Because here is the truth that most men never realize: the world doesn't need your explanations. It needs your presence. People don't follow words, they follow energy. They don't respect excuses, they respect conviction. They don't admire over-justified decisions, they admire men who stand firmly in their choices without needing permission. That is the essence of magnetic energy, and it all begins the moment you stop over-explaining. So today, make that choice. Stop explaining yourself unnecessarily. Stop giving away your energy to those who don't deserve it. Step into the silence of self-possession. Own your decisions, live them fully, and watch how, without even trying, the world begins to take notice. Remember this: every word you don't need to say, every justification you don't need to offer, every explanation you hold back, it is a brick in the foundation of your natural magnetism. Stop over-explaining, and you will start to feel the invisible power of presence, the kind that draws people, commands respect, and makes you unforgettable without you having to say a single word. That is where real power begins. That is where magnetism is born. Now let's talk about something that silently robs so many older men of their natural magnetism: seeking approval. This is one of those habits that creeps in quietly over the years, disguised as politeness, consideration, or even wisdom. You tell yourself, I just want to make a good impression, or I just want people to like me, but here's the hard truth: the moment you start seeking approval, you give away a piece of your power. You hand over your presence to the judgment, opinions, and expectations of others. And the more you do it, the less magnetic you become. Approval seeking is subtle, but it shows up in every area of life. It's the constant need to have your ideas validated, the hesitation to make a decision, unless someone else nods in agreement. The habit of bending to others' expectations so that no one feels offended. It's asking, is this okay? When the answer is already clear to you. And every time you seek approval, you are saying to the world, consciously or unconsciously, I am not enough on my own. That, my friends, is exactly the opposite of attraction, respect, and authority. Magnetism does not come from people liking you, it comes from people recognizing your unshakable confidence in yourself. Think about it. How often do you make choices based on what you think others want you to do? How often do you hide parts of yourself because you fear judgment? How often do you tone down your voice, your opinions, or your presence because you want to be liked? The moment you answer honestly, you realize how much of your energy is being spent trying to satisfy invisible expectations. That energy, that life force, could be used to build presence, confidence, and magnetism instead. Seeking approval is fundamentally a fear-based behavior. It comes from the worry that others will reject you, criticize you, think less of you. And while it may feel safe in the short term, it's a trap. Because real magnetism, real presence, is never about safety. It is about comfort with your own existence. It is about living fully in alignment with your values, desires, and principles without constantly asking for someone else's permission. And let me tell you, the moment you stop chasing validation, something incredible happens. You feel lighter, you feel freer, and the world begins to respond to you in ways it never has before. Magnetic men understand this instinctively. They do not act to please. They do not speak to gain approval. They do not measure their value by who likes them or who doesn't. Instead, they act according to their own principles. They express themselves fully, openly, and honestly, without fear of disapproval. And in doing so, they create an energy that draws people naturally, irresistibly toward them. Women, men, colleagues, strangers, they sense a presence that is not contingent on their opinions. That is power. That is magnetism. That is the invisible force that makes people lean in, pay attention, and respect you without a single word being spoken. Let me give you a practical example. Imagine a man at a dinner party. Most men feel compelled to nod at opinions they disagree with, laugh at jokes they don't find funny, and water down their own thoughts just to fit in. Every laugh, every nod, every agreement is a piece of themselves being given away in pursuit of acceptance. But the man who stops seeking approval, he listens, he observes. He speaks when he feels compelled to speak, not when he feels obligated to. He disagrees calmly, he expresses his perspective unapologetically, and he never fears judgment because he knows that his presence and his perspective have value without needing validation. That energy, the confidence, the self-possession, the lack of neediness, is magnetic. People are drawn to him instinctively. Seeking approval doesn't just reduce your magnetism externally, it also corrodes your self-worth internally. When you constantly look outside yourself for validation, you begin to doubt your own decisions. You second-guess yourself. You feel the need to explain, justify, or defend choices that are already correct for you. And in doing so, you trap yourself in a cycle of insecurity and dependency on others' opinions. It's exhausting, it's frustrating, and most importantly, it blocks the growth of the magnetic presence that naturally comes from self-trust. Here's the key: your life does not require universal approval. No one is waiting to give you a certificate of worthiness. No one has the power to define your value unless you give it to them. The moment you internalize this truth, the moment you stop bending to external expectations, the moment you stop asking the world to nod in agreement, everything changes. Your voice becomes stronger, your presence becomes heavier, and your magnetism becomes undeniable. You begin to move through life with a silent authority that attracts people and opportunities without you having to chase them. It's not always easy to stop seeking approval. Old habits die hard. Social conditioning, upbringing, and years of subtle pressure can make it feel unnatural at first. But that's exactly why doing it sets you apart. That's exactly why older men who master this become magnetic. They step off the treadmill that most men never even notice they're on. While others are scrambling to please, these men are building presence. while others are draining their energy trying to be liked. These men are claiming their natural authority, and the difference is palpable. People notice it instinctively. So how do you start? The first step is awareness. Catch yourself the next time you feel the urge to seek validation, to adjust your behavior, to explain your choices for the sake of being liked. Pause. Ask yourself, do I need their approval or do I simply want it? The answer often reveals a habit you can break. The second step is courage. It takes courage to live unapologetically, to move through life without constantly seeking permission. But courage is magnetic. Courage draws attention. Courage commands respect. And courage begins the moment you trust yourself more than you trust the opinions of others. And here's the final truth about magnetism. The less you seek approval, the more people naturally respect and admire you. When you act in alignment with your own principles, and you live fully and unapologetically, the world leans in, not because you tried to impress, but because you no longer need anyone's approval. That energy, quiet, confident, unshakable, is rare, and the world responds to rarity instinctively. So today, make that choice. Stop seeking approval for your decisions, your actions, and your existence. Step into your own authority. Trust yourself. Live according to your own rules. Speak when it matters. Act when it matters. And let the world witness a man who is secure, confident, and completely magnetic. Because here's what you must understand. Approval is fleeting, external, and often unreliable. Magnetism is internal, self-sustained, and undeniable. Stop chasing what cannot define you and start owning what always has. The moment you do, the world begins to notice, not because you asked for attention, but because you earned it silently, effortlessly, and without compromise. Let's get straight to a truth that most older men refuse to face. Apologizing too much kills your magnetism. It is subtle, it is habitual, and it often feels necessary, but in reality, it quietly erodes respect, presence, and authority. The world tells us that being polite, being humble, being nice is the path to connection, but over-apologizing is not humility, it is surrender. Every time you say sorry for things that don't need an apology, you are telling the world, and more importantly, yourself, that your presence is somehow a burden. That energy, subtle as it may seem, is invisible yet undeniable. And it is completely counterproductive to the kind of magnetic presence we are talking about. Think about how often this happens. You bump into someone accidentally and you apologize excessively. You express your opinion, and when someone challenges you, you immediately soften your stance with an unnecessary apology. You make a decision, you live your life, and you apologize to the people around you as though your existence depends on their comfort. The pattern is endless, and it is silent. Most men don't even realize they are doing it. And the result? People stop taking them seriously. People stop leaning in. People unconsciously sense a lack of presence and authority because over-apologizing communicates insecurity, not integrity. Here's the paradox most men never understand. Apologizing is powerful when it is necessary. When you genuinely harm someone, when you cross a boundary, when you make a mistake, an apology shows strength, awareness, and accountability. But when you apologize for simply existing, for expressing your opinion, for making a choice that is yours to make, then it becomes weakness. It becomes a habit that teaches people to underestimate you. It signals that your energy, your time, and your presence are negotiable. And a man who is negotiable is never magnetic. Over-apologizing is rooted in the fear of conflict and the need for external comfort. Men fear that saying no, asserting themselves, or making others uncomfortable will lead to rejection or disapproval, so they cushion every interaction with apologies, preemptively softening their presence to make the world accept them. And in doing so, they diminish themselves. They shrink. They allow the world to set the terms for their own life, rather than living on their own terms. The energy of self-diminishment is palpable, it is invisible, yet everyone senses it, and it repels respect, attraction, and power. Now contrast that with a man who understands the subtle power of restraint, a man who apologizes only when it is meaningful, necessary, and genuine. He does not apologize for existing, for asserting boundaries, for living in alignment with his principles. He does not fear that discomfort will break him because he knows discomfort is temporary and inconsequential compared to the energy he preserves by standing firm. He communicates with integrity without unnecessary concessions. He acts with confidence without needing to smooth over every interaction. And that man is magnetic. People are drawn to him naturally, instinctively, without him having to prove anything. Over-apologizing also undermines your inner authority. Every apology for what is not your fault, every apology for standing firm, every apology for asserting yourself chips away at your internal sense of self-worth. It conditions you to believe that your existence must be justified, that your choices must be defended, that your energy is something others can question. And once that conditioning sets in, it becomes a compulsion. You apologize before even thinking, because you have been trained over years to fear disapproval. That compulsion is invisible, yet it communicates more to the world than any confident action ever could. The solution is deceptively simple. Recognize when an apology is necessary and when it is not. The moment you feel the urge to apologize, pause and ask yourself, am I apologizing for my mistake, or am I apologizing to make someone else comfortable at the expense of my own presence? The difference is profound. The first builds integrity. The second erodes your energy. The first strengthens your presence. The second diminishes it. The first attracts respect, the second repels it, and the men who understand this distinction and live by it consistently are the men who carry natural magnetism effortlessly. Here's another truth most men never face: over-apologizing is contagious. When you constantly apologize, you teach people to undervalue you. You create a pattern where your energy is expected to be negotiable, your presence is expected to be softened, and your decisions are expected to be justified. The world unconsciously adapts to your lack of boundaries, and that adaptation becomes the norm. You are no longer seen as a man of authority. You are seen as someone pliable, easily influenced, and ultimately less magnetic. Breaking this habit requires courage. It requires a conscious decision to stop seeking external comfort at the expense of your own energy. It requires self-awareness to notice the small moments where you apologize unnecessarily and the conviction to pause and choose a different path. You will feel resistance. You may feel guilt. You may even fear that others will view you as rude, harsh, or unkind. But here's the truth. Magnetic men are never defined by the temporary discomfort of others. They are defined by their own presence, their own energy, and their own principles. And the moment you stop over-apologizing, you reclaim that presence. It's also important to note that magnetism is not about aggression. It's not about being confrontational or dismissive. A man who stops over-apologizing does so with calm authority. He communicates clearly. He sets boundaries without defensiveness. He lives deliberately, unapologetically, and fully present. And in doing so, he does not need to over-explain, over-justify, or over-apologize to maintain relationships or influence. People respect him instinctively because he respects himself. That is the invisible force of magnetism, the quiet, unshakable authority that commands attention without a single overt display. So how do you start? Begin by noticing your language. Notice the situations where you feel compelled to apologize unnecessarily. Pause before speaking. Ask yourself whether your apology is truly required or merely a way to soothe others. Start small. Say, "I won't apologize for this," quietly to yourself before asserting a choice or stating a truth. Practice holding your ground even in the face of subtle disapproval. Every time you do, you build the invisible architecture of your presence. Every time you resist the urge to over-apologize, you strengthen your magnetism. And here's the final truth: apologies are valuable, powerful, and necessary, but only when deserved. The moment you apologize unnecessarily, you diminish your presence, your energy, and your influence. The moment you stop over-apologizing, you step into a space of authority, respect, and natural magnetism that cannot be ignored. The energy of a man who does not apologize for his existence is palpable, irresistible, and unforgettable. So today, choose your words carefully. Choose your presence deliberately. Recognize when an apology is genuine and when it is unnecessary. Stop giving away your energy to soothe the world. Stand firm in your life, your choices, and your principles, and watch how, without trying, the world begins to lean in, notice, and respect you in ways you never imagined. Remember this: every apology that is not needed is a piece of your power lost. Every moment you resist unnecessary apology is a step toward a presence that is magnetic, commanding, and unforgettable. Stop over-apologizing, and you will start to feel the quiet, invisible force of your own authority, the force that makes people respect you, admire you, and naturally gravitate toward you. That is where real power begins. That is where magnetism lives. Let's dive into a truth that most men never understand. Authority doesn't need to shout. Power doesn't need to boast. True magnetism is silent, invisible, and yet unmistakable. Yet so many older men spend their lives trying to be seen as powerful, trying to be heard as important, trying to prove their worth through noise, words, and constant action. They mistake volume for influence, presence for attention, and activity for authority, and in doing so, they unknowingly push people away. Silent authority, on the other hand, works differently. It commands attention without a single boast. It inspires respect without a single demand. It draws people in without the need for constant validation or explanation. And this is the energy that makes men magnetic in the truest sense. Most men confuse being present with being loud. They believe that if they are quiet, if they do not constantly assert themselves, they are invisible, irrelevant, or weak. But that is the trap. Silent authority is not about invisibility. It is about being so grounded, so deliberate, and so aligned with yourself that your presence alone communicates influence. It is the energy of a man who does not have to announce his worth, because it is felt the moment he enters the room. This is not learned overnight. It is cultivated over time through self-discipline, self-awareness, and the conscious choice to let your energy speak louder than your words. Think about it in practical terms. How often have you been in a room where one man speaks less than the rest, yet every word he utters carries weight, where others chatter, argue, and try to dominate attention, but when he finally speaks, everyone listens? That is silent authority. That is the power of presence. That is the invisible magnetism that draws respect, attention, and influence without effort. And the key to cultivating this energy is simple, yet challenging. Stop over-explaining, stop seeking approval, stop over-apologizing, and instead focus on the energy you project, the calm you carry, and the deliberate way you move through the world. Silent authority is also about restraint. The man who is magnetic does not feel compelled to respond to every comment, to correct every misunderstanding, or to weigh in on every situation. He understands that his energy is precious and that every word, every action, every interaction should carry weight. This does not mean he is disengaged or indifferent. It means he is deliberate. He chooses what to engage with, when to speak, and how to move through the world with intention. People sense this restraint, and it communicates confidence, self-possession, and authenticity. And nothing attracts respect more than authenticity. Another critical aspect of silent authority is self-mastery. The man who embodies this energy is not easily swayed by the emotions, judgments, or expectations of others. He remains calm in chaos, composed under pressure, and unwavering in his principles. He does not react impulsively to provocation, and he does not allow the world to dictate his emotional state. This inner calm, this unshakable presence, is magnetic. People are drawn to it instinctively. Women, colleagues, strangers. They sense the difference between a man who reacts and a man who commands silently, and they are drawn to the latter. Silent authority also communicates value without demand. The man who is magnetic does not need to convince anyone of his worth. He does not have to over-explain his choices, apologize unnecessarily, or seek validation. His energy communicates that he is complete, self-sufficient, and grounded. This is an invisible form of influence. People want to be near him, to listen to him, to understand him, not because he demands it, but because he radiates it. The energy of a man who carries himself this way cannot be ignored. It is felt in subtle glances, in body language, and in the unspoken recognition of his presence. Many men fail to grasp the subtlety of this energy. They think magnetism requires effort, performance, or visibility. They believe that attention is the same as authority. But authority, real authority, does not need to be loud. It does not need to be flashy. It does not need to be announced. Authority is recognized, not proclaimed. It is felt, not explained. And the man who embodies silent authority understands this. He does not chase attention. Attention follows him. He does not seek respect. Respect is given naturally. He does not need to prove himself. He simply exists in alignment with his own power, and the world leans toward him effortlessly. Silent authority is also about boundaries. The man who is magnetic does not allow others to drain his energy or dictate his presence. He sets limits with quiet confidence. He does not overcommit to please others, and he does not dilute his presence to avoid discomfort. Boundaries are not aggressive or defensive. They are declarative. They communicate to the world that his energy, time, and presence are valuable, and they will not be wasted. And nothing makes a man more magnetic than a man who knows his worth and communicates it effortlessly without words. Let's be clear, cultivating silent authority is not about arrogance, intimidation, or control. It is about alignment, presence, and deliberate energy. It is about knowing yourself so deeply that the world's chaos, judgment, or noise cannot shake you. It is about acting from a place of internal certainty rather than external approval. It is about mastering the art of presence, so that every glance, every gesture, and every word communicates power without effort. And when you combine this energy with the lessons we have discussed, stopping over-explaining, stopping seeking approval, and stopping over-apologizing, you create a force so compelling, so magnetic, that it cannot be ignored. Now, here's the truth that most men overlook. Silent authority does not come from external achievements. It does not come from money, status, or even physical presence. It comes from mastery over yourself, from the ability to remain grounded in any situation, to move deliberately in the world, and to project an energy that communicates confidence, value, and unshakable presence. And the men who embrace this energy are not only magnetic, they are unforgettable. People remember their presence long after they leave the room, and they respect the energy that cannot be manufactured or faked. So how do you cultivate it? Start by observing your own energy. Notice where you react impulsively, over-explain unnecessarily, or seek validation. Pause, step back, center yourself. Speak when it carries weight, act when it matters, and let your presence communicate authority without the need for words. Practice restraint, embrace calm, and align your actions with your principles. Every small step builds the invisible architecture of silent authority. Every choice to act deliberately instead of reactively strengthens your magnetism. Every moment you resist the urge to seek validation amplifies the power of your presence. And here's the final truth. Silent authority is magnetic because it communicates mastery over self, clarity of purpose, and unshakable confidence. It draws people without effort, commands respect without demand, and inspires influence without force. It is the invisible force that distinguishes ordinary men from extraordinary, magnetic men. And it begins the moment you stop reacting to the world and start projecting your energy intentionally, deliberately, and unapologetically. So today, commit to it. Stop over-explaining, stop seeking approval, stop over-apologizing, and step into the energy of silent authority. Move through the world with calm, grounded presence. Let your actions speak louder than words. Let your energy communicate your worth. And watch how, without trying, the world leans in, notices, and respects you. Remember this: authority does not shout, magnetism does not chase, power is not loud. Silent authority is the invisible force that makes you unforgettable, respected, and naturally magnetic. Embrace it, live it, and let the world feel it without you having to say a single word. That is where real presence begins. That is where true magnetism lives. Now let's talk about something that is the foundation of true magnetism: personal power. And I'm not talking about money, status, or influence in the conventional sense. I'm talking about the invisible energy that defines how you carry yourself, how you interact with the world, and how the world responds to you. Most older men have been slowly giving this power away for decades without even realizing it. They hand it over to the expectations of others, to the judgments of the world, to the constant need for approval and validation. And the more they give it away, the less magnetic, less respected, and less alive they feel. Reclaiming this personal power is the ultimate shift. Once you do it, everything else follows. Personal power begins with awareness. The first step is to recognize where you have been giving it away. Every time you over-explain yourself, every time you apologize unnecessarily, every time you seek validation, every time you allow someone else to dictate your emotional state, you are giving your power away. Most men don't even notice. It's subtle. It creeps in through habits and routines. It shows up in your relationships, in your work, in your interactions with friends and strangers. And once you recognize it, the second step becomes clear. Stop doing it. Stop handing over your authority, your presence, and your energy to the world. Reclaiming your personal power also means reclaiming your boundaries. Magnetic men understand that their energy is finite and it is valuable. They do not allow others to drain them with unnecessary demands, criticism, or expectations. They do not tolerate disrespect or manipulation. Setting boundaries is not about aggression or being unkind. It's about clearly communicating what is acceptable and what is not, and living in alignment with that understanding. When you stop letting people cross your boundaries, the world begins to respect you, not because you demanded it, but because you demonstrate that your energy and presence are not negotiable, and nothing makes a man more magnetic than a clear, confident, unapologetic sense of self. Personal power also means reclaiming your time and your focus. Most men spend their energy chasing things that do not matter: people's opinions, social approval, the illusion of control over outcomes they cannot influence. And every hour, every thought, every ounce of energy that is spent outside of your own priorities is a piece of your personal power lost. Magnetic men are deliberate. They choose where to invest their energy. They understand that their focus, their presence, and their actions must align with their own values and their own vision for their life. That discipline, that alignment, communicates authority and draws people naturally. It is the invisible force that separates ordinary men from magnetic men. Reclaiming personal power is also about reclaiming your emotional authority. Most older men allow others to dictate how they feel. They react impulsively to criticism, let anger or frustration control them, or feel diminished by others' judgments. A man who is magnetic does not live in reaction. He understands that his emotional state is his own responsibility. He does not hand it over to anyone else. When someone tries to provoke him, he does not react defensively. When someone challenges him, he does not falter. Instead, he maintains calm, clarity, and presence. That energy is magnetic. People instinctively lean in, they pay attention, and they respect it. Emotional authority is not something you can fake. It is cultivated through awareness, restraint, and deliberate practice. There is also a profound psychological truth here. Personal power grows when you stop trying to control how the world perceives you. Most men spend their lives trying to manipulate perception, crafting images of themselves to gain respect, admiration, or validation. But the truth is, real power is not performed, it is inherent. The moment you stop chasing perception and start living in alignment with your own values, choices, and principles, your energy shifts. You move from external validation to internal authority. You stop giving away pieces of yourself to impress, appease, or explain, and that shift is invisible to the world, yet it is felt instantly. People notice and they respond. Magnetism, in its purest form, is a reflection of this internal authority. Reclaiming personal power also means reclaiming your voice. Most older men shrink their voice, literally and figuratively, to avoid conflict, to avoid judgment, or to avoid discomfort. They settle for mediocrity in conversations, relationships, and opportunities because they fear overstepping invisible boundaries. But the magnetic man speaks his truth clearly, deliberately, and confidently. He does not shout, he does not demand, but he does not shrink either. His words carry weight because they are grounded in self-possession, clarity, and authority. Every time you reclaim your right to express yourself authentically, you strengthen your personal power and your presence. Another essential part of reclaiming personal power is embracing responsibility, not in the way the world defines it, but in the way the self-possessed man understands it. Responsibility is not about pleasing others or proving your worth. It is about owning your life entirely, your choices, your actions, your emotions, and your presence. When you stop blaming others for how you feel, when you stop allowing circumstances or people to diminish you, and when you step fully into accountability for your energy, that is when magnetism manifests. People respect a man who owns his life without excuses. They are drawn to a man who is unshakable, self-possessed, and deliberate. Reclaiming personal power is also about eliminating unnecessary dependencies. Many men rely on external validation, material status, or relationships to feel secure. But magnetic men understand that true power comes from within. Their confidence, presence, and energy are not contingent on anyone else. They are self-sufficient in the most profound sense. This self-sufficiency is not isolation, it is mastery. It is the ability to navigate the world with clarity and authority without relying on others to define your worth. That energy is magnetic. People are drawn to it naturally, unconsciously, and irresistibly. And here's the ultimate truth. Personal power is the culmination of all the practices we've discussed. When you stop over-explaining, stop seeking approval, stop over-apologizing, and embrace silent authority, you are not just changing behavior, you are reclaiming your energy, you are standing in your own truth, you are aligning with the most authentic, magnetic version of yourself. This is the energy that cannot be faked, cannot be bought, and cannot be diminished. It is magnetic because it is real, deliberate, and unapologetic. So how do you reclaim your personal power? Start by noticing where you have given it away. Pause before you over-explain, over-apologize, or seek validation. Step back and ask, whose energy am I giving away and why? Set boundaries, protect your time, your focus, and your presence. Speak your truth without fear. Move deliberately in alignment with your values. Own your emotional state. Let go of the need to control perception. And most importantly, trust yourself. Trust that your choices, your presence, and your energy are valuable without anyone else's permission. And here's the final reality. The moment you reclaim your personal power, everything changes. People notice, energy shifts, respect emerges, attraction grows, influence becomes effortless. You are no longer negotiating your value with the world, you are standing in it. That is the essence of magnetism. That is the invisible, undeniable force that makes men unforgettable. It is not learned from books, it is not taught in seminars, and it cannot be copied. It is cultivated within. And once you embrace it fully, there is no going back. So today, make that choice. Reclaim your power, own your presence, protect your RGY. Speak your truth. Live deliberately, stand in your authority, and watch as the world responds. Not because you demand it, not because you perform it, but because you embody it. Your magnetism is not a skill, it is a state. A state that begins the moment you reclaim your power and refuse to give it away again. Remember this, every time you surrender your energy to the world, you diminish your magnetism. Every time you reclaim it, you strengthen it exponentially. Reclaim your personal power, and you will step into a presence that is magnetic, respected, and unforgettable. That is where real influence begins. That is where true authority lives. That is where your life transforms.